it's interesting to try to challenge the conventional wisdom that you have to say this or that, and think creatively how to do this and that. So how to make a business that's both socially impactful and economically sustainable, or a product that's more healthy and tasty.
Entrepreneurs who we have every year on this program, and particularly social entrepreneurs like you, always find there's a personal story behind why they took the path they did, to create something of their own, to start a new business, and the particular business or kind of business that they've tried to start. So what was it in your, you think your growing up or your background that led you to want to take this path?
10 years before kind, I had gotten into the food industry and made 10 years of mistakes, but I had kind of figured out how the natural food space community worked. And I personally felt still very frustrated every time I was in Penn Station myself, or I was traveling to faraway countries to do piecework ventures between neighbors trying to coexist, or when I was going store by store and I needed a break, or when I was skipping lunch or dinner. I always was looking for a snack that would be helpful, that would be nutritionally rich, and I didn't find it, so I decided to create it. So it really was looking to fill a need that I had and that I figured out other people had also, to something made with whole ingredients. I thought I was going to be a Mideast peace negotiator.
Okay.
That was my path and my dream. And I ended up feeling that the power of business to drive change may potentially be more impactful in bringing neighbors to work together than diplomacy.
And that was kind of a goal from your very first business, right? Pieceworks?
Through Pieceworks.
Was to try to see how could a business, as you said, almost kind of be a Middle East negotiator in a certain sense. So
how instead of going into government, use the private sector forces, use the forces of the market to drive people to connect with one another. And the theory of Pieceworks is that as you connect with one another, you shatter cultural stereotypes, you discover each other's humanity, you go into conflict regions where Arabs and Israelis are trading with one another, and not only do they discover each other's humanity, but they gain a vested interest in preserving those relationships because they now have that profit incentive to maintain and deepen those relations. And Pieceworks, the first company, started 22 years ago. In spite of all the vicissitudes of the conflict, most of those relationships that were forged over 2 decades ago are still maintained, and Israelis, Turks, Egyptians, Palestinians are still trading.
So these are all the different, the suppliers, the business partners?
Yeah, they're trading partners that work together.
Yeah.
And if you want me to go to why I'm passionate about that, I'm a confused Mexican Jew, and my
How
father...
many confused Mexican Jews in the audience? Not quite as many as
There's a few of us.
There's a few, I think. Yeah.
But my dad was a Holocaust survivor. He came to Mexico after surviving the Dachau concentration camp. And from a very early age, he talked to me about what he went through. And he didn't hold any punches. He used to tell us about what he went through, which was, for a young kid to learn, it really marks you. But he also told us a lot about the positives in that experience, which was remarkable because most people that have gone through the Holocaust, they have to either block it out of their minds or they are just embittered by the horrible experience. And my dad was able to remember it, remember the horrors, but also remember the very many moments that led him to survive. Because as a little kid, only about 1% of 9-year-olds that were sent, that went through what he went through and ended up surviving. And he was in Dachau concentration camp from the age 12 and a half to 15 when he was rescued by American soldiers. And just like those American soldiers that came thousands of miles away to rescue people they had never met and risked their lives to save others, there was a German soldier that, when nobody was watching, threw a potato by my dad's feet and gave my dad sustenance to continue. And there were many examples of kindness that got my dad to survive. And a combination of those factors made me, the common thread in everything I do is building bridges between people, because that's kind of my commitment to try to prevent what happened to my dad from happening again. it's interesting to try to challenge the conventional wisdom that you have to say this or that, and think creatively how to do this and that. So how to make a business that's both socially impactful and economically sustainable, or a product that's more healthy and tasty. So in any such venture, there is a tension, and you need to use creativity to create that extra value.
As you've launched Kind, what was the "and" behind Kind? You talk about that, and I think it's a great example of how entrepreneurs think. I mean, when we talk about innovation and theories of innovation, and really theories of creativity, because that's a central part of innovation, is this idea of, as it's sometimes described, combining the seemingly incompatible as a sort of a driver of divergent thinking, and opens up new possibilities. And I think it's a great insight to how you thought about that. Now, for Kind specifically, what was the challenge? What was the tension you were trying to overcome in building this brand? The things you were trying to combine?
Yeah, and I do agree with that. I think fundamental entrepreneurship, and particularly social entrepreneurship, you create enormous opportunities when you're able to do what you just described, which is the thinking with "and", when you achieve seemingly incompatible goals by a creative mechanism. In Kind's case, it was threefold. Number one, to make a company that was going to have a social impact and that was going to be economically impactful and successful. So to combine the social and the business objectives. And when I mean that social impact in that strand, I mean about inspiring kindness, about celebrating kindness, about finding a way to increase kindness in society while also selling healthy snack foods. There is also a social element in the other objective, which is making product that's tasty but also healthful with nutritionally rich ingredients rather than empty calories. And that tension was trying to make something that, when you think with "or", you're like, is it going to be indulgent and really tasty because it's really indulgent and decadent, or is it going to be healthful but maybe boring? And that's a false paradigm, that's a false compromise. And there's a way to elevate the consumer's experience and our value proposition by highlighting how can you actually say it's not healthy or tasty, it can be healthy and tasty. And that's been our journey. Tends to be by using more premium ingredients, more nutritionally dense ingredients, and working harder to come up with products that are both healthy and tasty.
Was that harder to make it an affordable price point too, as well? Because you could say, all right, well, we're going to use really premium ingredients, and it's just going to be almost a luxury, really high price product. But I find the Kinds, they're pretty reasonable, affordable.
Yeah, thank you. $20, I take you for it. Yes, but I think, it is a perfect example of how you also do need to acknowledge that sometimes you can't just make it magically improve. Like sometimes there are some
real constraints,
sacrifices and constraints, and our product is made with the number one ingredient in our nut bars is nuts. It's almonds, which are much more expensive than fillers. The number one ingredient in our healthy grain bars is 5 or 6 super grains that are gluten-free oats and amaranth and quinoa, which are more expensive than other more commoditized items. So there is a higher cost and there is a higher value proposition, but the reason we've been able to achieve competitive prices is because we make every day millions of Kind bars. So now we are very efficient and we're able to achieve scale. But when I was starting, it was harder to do that. And there was an element of just saying, in fact, when we were designing the product, I removed cost as a filter, because in the book I described the different stages of creativity within the "and" philosophy, and it's very important that when you're creating something, you don't apply filters. Like, for example, when you're creating a product, you don't think about cost. Now, if anybody in my new product development team is here, they're going to try to hold me to it because I'm like, why are you making things so expensive? but in the creative process, it is important to not be constrained, because if I had been constrained by that, I would have never created Kind. Because when we would go to manufacturers initially, before we were manufacturing ourselves, and ask them to make it for us, they were like, you're crazy. My line is so efficient because I can make, in our industry, something called slab bars. Every one of the top 10 brands other than us, their product is an emulsion or paste where you take a bunch of ingredients, mash them up into a paste, and it just runs really smoothly through the line. It's very efficient. It's beautiful. So, and with our product, it's more artisanal. It's like whole nuts and fruits, and it's much harder for the line to run efficiently. So at the beginning, I had a lot of opposition from my trading partners saying, you're never going to be able to compete because it's going to cost so much more to run the line. And part of the creativity is how to make the line run more efficiently, but it's never going to be as efficient as an emulsion or a paste. And you know, at some point you need to decide, well, at what cost do I want to commodify my product and lose its soul?
Right.
But there are some sacrifices. I really think we need to be careful about assuming that because you have a social mission, suddenly things work. Like, 99% of the people that have tried Kind Bars, or maybe 90%, don't even know about our social mission. And it's, maybe we shifted the pendulum too much on the other side, but it's by design that we lead with our product and our taste and the reason you guys buy our products is because they're delicious and tasty and helpful. The social mission adds loyalty, adds meaning to you and to your team, and hopefully passion for our consumers. But the fundamentals have to be there, and they're really what drive the business. And anytime we advance our social mission, not on the health aspect, because that does relate more to the value proposition of what consumers want, but anytime that we're focusing on inspiring kindness, when we ask surveys or when we look at data, it's not what drives our sales. Now, with that said, it drives our passion and our energy, and it is actually a much harder thing to do, because what's magical about kindness is that when it's authentic and sincere, it makes this world better, right? Every time, if I'm kind to you and I surprise you and I help you carry this big suitcase up the stairs, not only do you feel good about yourself, but I feel good that I was nice to a person and that I got to work out a little bit. Now, and the more you go out of your way to help that stranger, the more that you feel satisfied throughout the day. The challenge in scaling that is that the reason why it was magical and it created happiness is that it was authentic. You know, kindness creates happiness for both sides when there's no other ulterior purpose. You can't engineer that. You can't tell the guy, hey, if you're kind to one another, we're going to give you Kind Bars. It actually, it undermines the purity of it. So how do you scale it? How do you inspire kindness? So we've for the last 10, 12 years played with it. In Chapter 8, I talked through a lot of our examples and mistakes we made in trying to authentically inspire kindness. Today we have 3 buckets of ways we do it. One of them is called Kind Awesome Cards. Has any of you guys ever received a Kind Awesome card?
Kind Awesome card? No.
At least one person over there. Good job. So like every one of our team members carries them, but you now actually can do it online. We opened up the system to our community. It's an honor system. You can reward a person that you see doing a kind act at any point on our account. We'll send them 2 free Kind Bars to celebrate their act after it happened. So if I'm notice that there was a person that seated their taxi cab to an elderly person, then I approach them and I walk up to them and they're like, who are you freak? And then after I overcome them calling the police, I tell them, no, you know, that was really kind awesome of you. And in appreciation for your gesture, you go to this website, enter this code, and we send you 2 Kind Bars and another either digital or physical card, so you can then celebrate the next person that you spot doing the kind thing for somebody else. And the reason I like this is, first of all, they don't interfere with that special moment. That moment has already happened, so you're only celebrating the person after it happened. But you do, like when I'm in the subway and somebody did something really nice, even if I speak in a quiet and soft voice to celebrate them, there's a few people around that they're like, you see, like, you know, I don't know if any of you guys go on the 6th line, but that place is like a social experiment in and of itself. Like, sometimes the tension on the 6th line where you want to get in and you can't fit in, and there's all these like dynamics going on. And let's just say, as a human beings, we tend to fail those experiments most of the time on the 6th line. So when somebody rises up to be a nice person, is smiling and is being nice to others, it's really worth celebrating. And I like giving this out. And then the people around, they smile and they're like, oh, that was nice. That was nice that that person helped that other person, and that's nice that we're building community here through a very small thing. And then in terms of connecting our social mission to our business mission of thinking with Ant, this does have the ability of us putting 2 Kind Bars in the hands of a kind person that deserves them at a special moment, and hopefully connecting that person to our brand. So
Yeah.
there is a business element in what we do. It's not purely altruistic. We're trying to
Right.
get people to celebrate one another, but we're also finding ways to creatively put kind bars in other people's hands at a moment where we want to celebrate them. The other thing we do is called kind causes, where every month we get behind one particular cause. Anybody can upload their cause to our website, kindcauses.com or kindmovement.com, and you go and you add what you care about. It might be cleaning up a beach, or helping underprivileged kids, or helping kids that were sexually abused was one of the themes that was chosen one month. But the way we get behind the cause, the community votes. And the way the community votes is by pledging a small kind act of their own. So if you're looking through all the proposals and one really tugs your heartstrings.
Yeah.
I'm getting my expressions.
Tugs at your heartstrings.
I'm getting
Yeah,
my expressions
yeah.
right today. If one particular cause really compels you, then you can pledge again on an honor system basis that you're going to do this or that small kind act in their honor. And the cause that inspires the most kind acts that particular month triggers support from us, where we give them a financial contribution as well as advisory work to help them scale their cause. And the third thing we do is called Kind People, which we just announced. Did I tell you the website? It's called howkindofyou.com, for if any of you guys want to use the thing and give free kind bars to people that deserve them. It's howkindofyou.com, but it's on an honor system. If somebody really does a kind act, then you can give it to them. And then the third thing is called Kind People, which we just announced a month ago. We created a separate kind foundation to administer this, and the first year we're giving out $1 million worth of awards to people that have really, really stood out in their communities and have really selflessly gone above and beyond in changing people's lives, either one individual life or their community.